We are not going back. We are not going back.
That is the sound of the Democratic Party's presumptive nominee. The sound of her policy voice mixed with something you may have already noticed, which is a type of cultural excitement that is actually palpable out in the country. The comparison you see on your screen is not from the news, it's not from the commentators, it is from the Harris campaign itself, which is working directly with her longstanding interest, support, and back and forth relationship with Beyonce in her cowboy hat. She has spanned from R&B to country, and the first video uses her beloved power anthem, Freedom.
There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose.
Freedom. And whether that is the first of many Beyonce or cultural political anthems with the Harris campaign, only time will tell. You could also say, girls, we run the world. You could say, pay me in equity. You could say a lot of things. The presumptive nominee is saying freedom. And she's facing off a Republican Party that, while they knew she was the heir apparent, they knew she was the running mate, they knew she is the vice president, they still seem to be, at this early date, confounded with how to deal with her. Take Rupert Murdoch's conservative Wall Street Journal, which basically all but warns Republicans to get their act together, that they are suddenly and oddly on the back foot. Donald Trump and the GOP could lose this race to Harris, the Journal states. She's shrewdly now pitching the campaign as the future versus the past. The enthusiasm gap that had favored Republicans may have vanished. Again, continuing to read from a conservative outlet, they note that on the stump, she's performing better than she did in 2019 or even, quote, in her early days as vice president. The Trump campaign also noting that it may be facing a polling problem. You've heard about all the spin. You watch the news. You know that there's spin. But instead of saying they're great or she's the worst or Trump's going to be fine, his pollster is actually trying to manage expectations, discussing a honeymoon in the coming polls that they expect because they don't think Trump can hold on to some of the leads he's had. Here you see Harris rapidly catching up to Donald Trump in some of the polling. And in the sign of the momentum around her candidacy, the endorsements are pouring in. NBC News reports she could get the big Obama endorsement as soon as tonight. He has followed a traditional role, which his aides say is important to him, which is basically to be not a kingmaker, not a queenmaker, whatever you want to call it, not someone who crowns the next nominee, but who listens to everyone, who has respect within the party and reflects what's happening. At a practical level, Harris has secured the number of pledged delegates and all the support. She is the presumptive nominee in the way that we measure those things. So Obama could come in any time and bring that all together for another jolt of enthusiasm during a week that, as you saw, the Wall Street Journal said, has been pretty great for Kamala Harris. Now, I also want to show you another moment from that new rally where she laid down a challenge to Donald Trump.
I'm ready to debate Donald Trump. I have agreed to the previously agreed upon September 10th debate. He agreed to that previously. Now it appears he's backpedaling, but I'm ready. And I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage. And so I'm ready. Let's go.
And we turn to our experts as promised, longtime strategist James Carville and White House correspondent for the USA Today, Francesca Chambers, who has led the Harris beat, as they call it, for about 5 years. Welcome to you both. Francesca, what do you see in this politician that you followed so closely, both in substance and style, the confidence, that first video I showed with Beyonce, and what we just heard from her there most recently, saying that Donald Trump's backpedaling from a deal, suggesting maybe he's afraid of the new person he'd have to debate?
Well, we've seen her be more visible in recent weeks, even before this. And what I had heard from Democrats before, even those who like her, was that they weren't sure what she was up to as vice president. They had trouble assessing how she would be as a potential presidential candidate. And so what I have heard since then, including from people who were involved in her campaign in 2019, is that they are hearing more of that confidence that you just spoke about, that she's more comfortable now that she's not the number two in this race, that she's speaking on behalf of herself. And when you look at that polling against former President Donald Trump, it's still in the margin of error. It's also still early. But one place that she is cleaning up from where President Joe Biden was among support among Democrats. We've seen that really coalesce around her.
Yeah. James Carville, you were out on a cruise ship that didn't stop you from talking sometimes to interviewers, and according to the New York Times, working the phones, because you are part of the leadership and the emeritus number of campaign experts in the Democratic Party. Now, as you know, James, there's an old saying, you don't always have to be on the cruise ship to see how choppy the water is. I don't know if you know that saying.
Okay. No, I know it now. It's very safe.
The water was choppy. Now it seems in all measurable ways, from buzz to the polling we just mentioned, and I'll show more about in a minute, to fundraising, to have a lot of smoother sailing. Your thoughts first, big picture.
Well, I hate to do this, but I got to be the curmudgeon. I have to be the skunk at the garden party. This is too triumphalist, okay? This is everybody's giddy. I look at the coverage, and it's great, and if I had to write a play about what I think it's going to be like, it would be entitled The Ice Pick Cometh, okay? Get ready, they're coming, all right? And it's good. Everybody should feel good and liberated and everything else. But if we don't win the election, we hadn't done anything. We haven't changed the temperature in America. We haven't changed anything. And I think the vice president, I hope that, her campaign is getting ready. I hope they'll listen to my friend and fellow New Orleanian, Don Brazil, who actually, I think, has the same kind of view of politics that I do. And they're coming at us, and they're going to keep coming. And this kind of giddy elation is not going to be very helpful much longer, because that's not what we're going to be faced with. And I think the vice president, put it in athletic terms, needs a really good cut man in a corner, because she's getting ready to get cut.
Let me show you the polling. No, hey, we welcome all. We welcome all views, all points, and I know you're a practitioner of the game, so you know when the game has 15 weeks, 100 days left, and what you're up against. You don't want too much celebrating to extend your sports analogies. You don't want to celebrate before you're in the end zone. I think people get that, even if they are feeling very different than they did last week. Very early, Francesca is absolutely... Go ahead, and then I'll show you the polls. Go ahead.
No, I was finished. Go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, well, Francesca's right. It's very early to judge any polling, because it's all new information. It's all going to take a while to shake out. But to the extent that we learn anything from these state polls, she's already doing better than Biden was, if they're both somewhat known quantities. Trump's margin here pretty tight in states like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Pretty much tied in Wisconsin. Harris improving on Biden, standing by a nudge there. Depends on the state. And again, I want to tell viewers, as I always do, these are within the margin of error. That means that if you're plus or minus 1 or 2 there, it's plus or minus 3.4 in the margin. So it's, statistically speaking, tied. But I'll go on those polls out to James and then Francesca.
There is no doubt that the polling has gotten better. And it's, it's kind of 45-45. It just sounds like I don't pay that much attention. Pay attention to polling averages, and Wasserman now does it. And there's no doubt it's gotten 2, 3, maybe, touch more somewhere in some places. But it's still the same country, all right? Might be a different mood. And all I'm saying is, good, bang your helmets against the locker. That's fine. But you still, when you go out there, you face an Alabama. And just get ready, because these Republicans, you're right, they got caught off guard, but they're going to get their sea legs, and we're having to get a whole campaign started and stuff. And all I'm doing is saying, watch out, people. Don't get too far out there. If we don't win this, all this good feeling is going to evaporate and be all for naught. And that's just kind of what I think my role is right now.
Francesca?
And the Harris campaign is trying to convert what they see as that early energy into actual votes. And one thing that they'll be doing this weekend, which will be their formal launch of the campaign, is they're having what they're describing as a weekend of action 100 days out from the race. Because to the point that James is making, look, they're starting not totally from scratch here, because they're taking over the Biden campaign apparatus, but they do have a new candidate and in many ways a new message, even if she is focusing on many of the themes that President Biden did in this campaign. And so they have to get out there and they have to pull some of those Democrats back in who had been frustrated, who had been demoralized, and get them not just enthused about the campaign, but get them actually to the polls in these key battleground states.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned this is whipped across culture. You know, James, sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, you know, Ari, maybe you're like obsessed with Beyonce. No, I'm not obsessed with Beyonce. The world's obsessed with Beyonce. I just live here. And so this is one of those times where it has broken through. Whether you're a Beyonce person or a Taylor person, whether you watch Colbert or The Tonight Show, this thing is all breaking through in interesting ways because you couldn't miss it. I mean, this has been an extraordinary couple of weeks we've lived through as a country. People will write entire books about the 7, 14, 21 days here. The late night hosts taking it all in. I want to play how they're looking at it.
The Harris campaign has raised a cool $126 million. Meaning, do you know what this means? That Kamala Harris had a bigger opening weekend than Twisters.
Yep, Biden delivered the address, although it was hard for people to focus with Kamala's interior designer in the background. And then we'll put a picture of Doug over here, and then I think he changed his curtain, right? Change his curtain.
Singer Charlie XCX just tweeted 3 little words that will soon be added to the list of iconic 3-word phrases from history. Yes, we can, we the people, and now Kamala is Brad.
Francesca?
I'm not surprised by the way that she used a Beyonce song for her very first ad, or not ad, they're calling it a campaign launch video. But I'm not surprised by that. Beyonce is someone who she's friends with. She went to her concert. And if you pay attention to the launch video, she doesn't explicitly come out and say that she'd be the first woman, that she'd be the first woman of color to be president if she were elected. But if you pay close attention to the ad and the visual images in the launch video there, she's nodding to those history-making things about her campaign while at the same time focusing on the substance and the issues that she wants this election to be about.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you having a up-close seat, I'm sure you're in a lot of demand, and that'll only continue, Francesca. We'll be seeing you again. Thanks for joining. James stays. We have our shortest break, 90 seconds. We'll be right back.
I'm out here telling people how they can save money with Experian. With subscription cancellation, you can be saving $270 on average a year.
Say less. I'm thinking girl math. You'll buy a pair of shoes with that.
That's what we're talking about.
Get started now with the Experian app.
Introducing Allison's Black Psoriasis. She thinks her flaky gray patches are all people see.
Otezla is the #1 prescribed pill to treat black psoriasis. Over here. Otezla can help you get clearer skin and reduce itching and flaking with no routine blood tests required. Doctors have been prescribing Otezla for over a decade. Otezla is also approved to treat psoriatic arthritis. Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Serious allergic reactions can happen. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Some people taking Otezla had depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss. Upper respiratory tract infection and headache may occur.
With clear skin, girls' day out is a good day out. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla.
You can't leave without cuddles, but you also can't leave covered in hair. With Bounce Pay,